Let me call to order the Board of Directors' regular meeting for February 29th. Happy Leap Day. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Garcia,
Top one. Top one. Oh.
Here.
Board Member Becker,
Present.
Board Member Musgrove,
Present.
Chair Druker,
Here.
noting Board Member Bob Patel, Board Member Sanchez, and Vice Chair Melendez are absent.
Very good. With that, Christian, will you lead us in the pledge?
Hand over your heart. Ready to begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
My understanding is Vice Chair Melendez is going to be a few minutes late, and Priyabat Patel, Carlsbad rep, is going to be maybe 10 minutes later. So we're going to start anyway. And next agenda item is board comments and announcements. Any? Okay, so on February 7th, our CEO, Greg, myself, and Katie Melendez as vice chair met with San Diego Gas and Electric. And so I just want to tell you a little bit about what happened at that. We do meet quarterly. And so this time we're reviewing accomplishments of the past year, which is specifically a successful implementation of San Marcos and Escondido. Also, we now have access to almost real-time data from San Diego Gas and Electric. So when people do call us, we're able to actually answer their questions about their usage rather than having to have them call back or something. And then the bill presentation continues to improve so that it's more obvious to the casual observer that what the charges are from San Diego Gas and Electric versus CEA. So San Diego Gas and Electric has again stated its focus is going to be on the delivery business, and they want to support CCA's generating business. Hi, Katie. And the one thing they want to ensure or partner with us is our mutual concern about graduated fixed charges, income fixed charges. And they chatted a little bit about that, how, there is a bill in the legislature to reverse that ruling. They don't, and Greg and I will chat a little bit about this during his CEO report where we were up in Sacramento advocating for CEA with all the other Cal CCA members. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Katie. It's your time to tell us about what you also learned at our quarterly meeting with San Diego Gas and Electric.
Great, thank you, Chair. Yes, it was great to attend my first quarterly meeting as the Vice Chair of CEA, and really I took a very positive look at our relationship with SDG&E, and CEA emphasized our goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by providing green energy and enrolling as many people as possible into the 100% renewable energy program, the Green Impact Energy product that we offer. And, in the discussions, I think we identified that SDG&E has a lot of strengths that can assist us with those goals. And SDG&E is our partner in achieving our goals, really emphasizing that they're the ones that are delivering that clean energy to the customer. So we have a different relationship than I think a lot of customers have had in the past, but because they are very established in that energy delivery space, we can count on them to deliver that clean energy to customers. And we really learned that SDG&E is committed to supporting CEA and its programs to ensure good customer experience and achievement of our respective climate action plan goals for each of our cities. They are supportive of those goals, and they want our customers to be onboarded and supported. And I particularly enjoyed recognizing in the conversation how SDG&E is an important partner for us because they have these established relationships, especially with some of our larger business and commercial customers that may need assistance, right? And may want more information as they're transitioning or considering transitioning to CEA. And so SDG&E can be supportive of our relationships with new customers that maybe we hadn't had relationships with before, but because they're so long established and they're helping us deliver our energy, we can really count on them for that. So it was a great meeting and I was glad to be a part of it.
Thank you, Katie. Just one other announcement. Everybody has name tags now. Thank you very much now we know who we are finally. Didn't know that before. So next we have a public comment. Kaylin, are there any members of the public that wanted to speak on items that are not on the agenda?
Thank you, Chair. I will begin and note that Vice Chair Melendez arrived at 2:05 p.m. and Board Member Bob Patel arrived at 2:08 p.m. for the record. And at this time, we do not have any public speakers.
Okay, and we're on Zoom, correct?
Correct.
Could you make the announcement of how anybody that may be watching, how they could make a comment at this point?
Yes, thank you. Members of the public can address the board on items on the agenda at the time the item is being addressed or during public comment for topics that are not listed on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. In conformance with the Brown Act, no board action can occur on items presented during public comment. If you desire to speak during public comment, please fill out a speaker card and submit it to the board secretary. When you are called to speak, please come forward to the podium and state your name. To address the board regarding an item on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card and submit it to the board secretary before the board chair announces the item.
Thank you very much. So next we have approval of minutes. These are for October 26th, regular and special meeting, the adjourned meeting held on November 9th, and the regular meeting held on January 25th. Do I have a motion
I'll move.
So moved. Oh,
and a
Thank you.
second?
second?
Okay,
Oh,
very good.
gosh,
Thank
I'll want to
you.
do it.
Kaylin, will you please call the roll?
Board Member Garcia,
Aye.
Board Member Becker,
Yes?
Board Member Musgrove,
Musgrove, aye.
Board Member Bob Patel,
Aye.
Vice Chair Melendez,
Aye.
Chair Druker.
Yes. Very good. Now we go on to a presentation and we have a very exciting presentation today. Greg, do you want to introduce Beth?
Thank you, members of the board and Chair and Vice Chair. I'm happy to introduce Beth Vaughn, who's the Chief Executive Officer for Cal CCA. We've known each other for quite some time, and it's nice to have her here in person, and she's going to give you a presentation on Cal CCA and CCAs in the state of California. Extremely knowledgeable and has been at this for quite some time, and we're happy to have you here, Beth.
Great. Hear me? All right. Well, good afternoon, Chair Druker and board members. It's wonderful to see you. It's been almost a year, I think, since we gathered in San Diego at the Cal CCA conference. I thank you for the invitation to come and speak with you today. I thought I'd start with a slide here. Now, do I call you CEO Wade? Is that what we call you? Or I call him Greg, CEO Wade? This picture was taken prior to you and Chair Druker arriving last week, but we did have our lobby day. And this was a photograph that we took early in the morning. So there were several more people that joined, but I thought it was significant in that we are really back together again. So there were 70 plus people that participated. And I feel that Sacramento knew that the CCAs were in town. So thank you both for being present. Okay, I believe you have in front of you a copy. We brought some printed copies of the map. You can see that also on the screen, along with the timeline. I know every time I speak to you, I always toss this up here. The timeline, shows from the formation of MCE in 2010 through to the last CCA that launched in October of 22, EPIC, at the city of Palmdale. And it shows the evolution, including in 2018 when Solana Energy Alliance launched, which Greg oversaw that event. So it's wonderful to have you back in the CCA family, leading Clean Energy Alliance. In here, I will just mention that this changes on March 1st, on Friday. Jackson McDonough, who I brought here with me today, he is with CalCCA, but he lives down here in Pacific Beach, so you have a local resource from CalCCA. He updates this along with members of our communications team. So you're going to see on here that for Clean Energy Alliance, it says 5 cities are operating. This will be updated April 1st when you launch to your additional cities, which is very exciting. The other reason I have this up here is just at the very bottom, you see the link to the CalCCA interactive CCA map and address lookup. So I just encourage you to go to our website. We have a new interactive map that Jackson has been busy designing. You can go in there and you can put in your address or anyone's address and find out who serves your energy needs. Is it a CCA? Is it a publicly owned utility? Is it an energy service provider, or is it an investor-owned utility? And we are layering on top of that in future versions to come, legislative, assembly districts, Senate, Congress, transmission lines, your projects, power projects that you build, a plethora of information that's going to be available on our website. Okay, I know many of you have seen this, but I always find it's helpful. For those that haven't, we do track at CalCCA what our CCAs are up to. We are now serving 216 communities, and you can see the percentages there of the counties and the cities, not all contiguous. Chair Drucker and I were talking about that. And then we have a calculation that comes out, it's roughly 14 million people that are now served by community choice aggregators. And there, as I mentioned before, while we don't have any new community choice aggregators launching and providing service, you can see in 2024, and then based upon the implementation plans that were filed by the end of 2023, there is new communities that will be joining the CCA family in 2025. So that's an update there for you. And then the other thing that we track, and you folks know this, is both the power procurement and the programs that the CCAs create. So just a reminder, every November we put out this announcement. I think within the first half hour, we get about 1,000 hits, many by the regulatory agencies who now see our data as being the most up to date. There are on that spreadsheet 302 power purchase agreements representing 14 gigawatts of renewables energy storage. And you can see the stats there, $25 billion invested by CCAs. Very significant. Okay. So now bear with me. I'm going to go a little off piece here, Greg, and tell you what's top of mind. So what are we working on at CalCCA right now? And really, it's this clean energy transition dilemma that we find ourselves in. And I think that Chair Drucker and Greg here, who were with us last week, heard this over and over again in Sacramento. Concern in the legislature about customer bills, affordability, and reliability, over and over and over again. And we are all concerned about these things. In a perfect world, we all want to accelerate our clean energy and climate goals, which you see there on the right. There's almost a race to decarbonization. But the problem that we're seeing now is it's putting pressure on the market, and we're experiencing scarcity. And I know that you have experienced that as well in many of your transactions over the past year. And I really think it came to light in August of 2020 when we had the rolling blackouts and the power PSPS events. And what we had to do was take a step back and say, well, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're going to need to keep online natural gas power plants. And if you recall, in August of 2022, the legislature approved the extension of Diablo Canyon. So nuclear also stayed online. So what has happened is they've also extended the life of the once through cooling plants. They've taken that plus Diablo Canyon And they put this into the strategic reliability reserve, right? It makes sense, sounds good, let's keep a buffer. Unfortunately, though, you take that out of the market and you add more stress, you create more scarcity. There's less resource adequacy capacity out there for load serving entities like yourselves to purchase. And I think this year, what happened is it really hit the customer bills beyond San Diego. So I know that San Diego, and there's your stacks, San Diego has usually always been the one with the highest rates. In this instance, Pacific Gas and Electric now exceeds San Diego. So these are the final 2024 rates by investor-owned utility. Don't worry about all the numbers and things. What I just wanted to show you is the stack and say in particular that you can see it's the generation, and I have to check the colors. Yep. In blue, my eyes, and the green in distribution that are the enormous costs that are driving these increase in rates and the increase in bills. We as CCAs can do something in the generation space, but we really can't do it in the distribution space. And remember, that's the place where the wildfire mitigation costs are lying as they try to upgrade the distribution system. So this is part of this cycle that I'm thinking about. I feel like we're in a vicious cycle where we try to do something, we put more pressure on the market then impacts the costs. And that at some point is going to impact whether or not we're going to make our clean energy goals by the timing in terms of the targets that we have. Okay, don't worry about this. All I wanted to do here is show a trend. So here's something that happened is, do you remember back with the Renewable Portfolio Standard, RPS? In 2020, the target was 33%. And then in 2030, the target is to be 60% compliance, right? And then Senate Bill 100 was introduced that said we're going to be carbon free by 2045. And then there is the CARB targets for million metric tons reduction of CO2, along with the scoping plan and all of the different plans in there they have for the energy sector, as well as other sectors. So when you add those together, we see a shift, and you can see we drew a line in here between kind of in 2021, 2022. And all I'm showing you here in this picture is pretend you're looking at what it will take to get to 2030. And all I'm saying is every year, the goalposts move, right? So every year, this graph is telling you, oh, based upon our calculations, you're going to need more resources. That's the stack. And that black line is transmission. Because if you need more resources, you're putting more electrons into the pipe, you need a bigger pipe. So we're, again, this vicious circle that we're in. And this is the conundrum that we're all trying to figure out at the regulatory agencies, in the legislature. It's a difficult question. And those costs, I'll just throw out there too, is that they're thinking by, it's about $5 billion just to get to the 2030 goals. So never mind the 2045. Okay, if we unpack this a little bit, this graph is just of generation. So we go to Senate Bill 100, and the furthest out, that's a date line at the bottom, is 2045. And you can see that steep curve. So while I'm boasting about, oh, 14 gigawatts by the CCAs, it's a drop in the bucket, right? It's not, how do we actually bring online over 6 gigawatts of power every year online? That means we can't have delays in the projects going online. Again, sorry, I'm in a graph mode. I wanted to share my thoughts today. Is now take a step back and get yourself out of California and think about the Western region. I mean, think globally, and everybody's trying to move towards a clean energy transition. But just within the West, WEC is the Western Energy Coordinating Council, and there are 14 states in the WEC. California is one of them. So when you look at those graphs, think about the one on the left. Those are solar PV, batteries, wind. They're all heading upwards more and more. Installations, procurement installations. And what you're seeing is coal and gas falling off. That's good. That's what we want. But we're all competing for the same resources, the same projects. So what you see on the right-hand side, and if you look at that timeline there, which goes from 2017 and on the far right is 2024, I see a lot of red, and it gets, the deeper the red, the greater the delay, right? So we're hitting project delays. And we also go out and data request all of our CCAs, and this is exactly in line with what we're seeing with our community choice aggregators. we can procure till the cows come home, as I told the governor's office last week, right? But actually bringing it online means that the permitting has to happen. It means the interconnection has to happen on time. It means the supply chain, and I think we were hearing anecdotally, we have data that says there are transformers, for instance, that there's, maybe an 18-month wait. Well, we heard an example of a 4-year delay in getting transformers. So if you can't do the upgrades, then you can't do the interconnection to all these awesome projects that you're signing up. And then again, and then I'm going to stop, I think, with all the graphs, but I just wanted to mention resource adequacy, because I know that's something that's been a pain point for Clean Energy Alliance as well as many of the CCAs. So if you thought things were bad now, our analysis of the compliance in the resource adequacy slice of day, and for those of you that came to the conference, we tried to play the slice of day game. We're in a test year right now, and it shows that without transactability between load serving entities, things are going to get a lot worse. And the CPUC has issued an initial report which had the same findings. So on the graph to the left, all I want you to see is you see this red line that's doing a big dive down. In a 3-year period, we lost 6 gigawatts of capacity on the system. So think natural gas plant retirements, cogeneration, that kind of thing, off the system. And we went below zero. So our analysis shows the scarcity in the market was such that there was nothing to purchase, right? And if you look, you see it went up again in 2023, and we're sitting on this margin of zero. What we're feeling good about is that it starts to go up as we head towards 2026. And that is the expectation that the new projects will be online, right? So the capacity will be available. But the blue shows the prices, and then the far right graph shows what happens between year ahead showings and the month ahead is those prices get out of control. And I've been quoted numbers over, $100 per kilowatt month. So it can get it gets expensive to do business. Again, scarcity equals higher prices. So just to make one more point about resource adequacy, and then I'll move off of it, and you're not going to be surprised, but we compared 2019 to 2023. And so you see CCAs have a slice of the obligations. We went back and looked at 2019 prices and what that would cost for our slice, $232 million. And then we went and said, okay, let's look at how much the prices have increased. And you can see the difference there. We worked it out. It's the average CCA customer paid $120 more for resource adequacy in 2023 than 2020. So again, we're talking not just rates, we're looking at customer bills. This is real money, and something has to be done. So what are we doing about it? Okay, what are we doing about it? All right, we are in the resource adequacy proceeding. We're always in that proceeding. It's on a 2-year cycle. And the one thing that I would say is that we, about 15 months ago, began doing a resource adequacy white paper, a thought piece that put these problems out into the public. And that is available on our website. We update it every quarter with new data. It has taken off like wildfire to the point where other folks have jumped in and started doing their own analysis. They have also been communicating that. And for the first time, we've seen in the discussion that's going on in the resource adequacy case, we're not the only ones who are asking for like a temporary waiver. While we're in the midst of this transition, why should we get penalized for not being able to purchase something that's not available in the market? So Edison, Southern California Edison, has also asked for a temporary waiver, as has the Public Advocate's Office at the CPUC. So I feel like we're gaining some momentum there. We have a whole host of ideas of how the framework should change, but I'm not going to bore you with that. But I just want to tell you that we're on it, and I think it's a broader coalition that we're bringing to the table now that is concerned about this. The other thing that CCAs are doing, again, don't worry about the numbers. Just look at the fact these are compliance in our long-term integrated resource planning procurement. The title is right there. We are over procuring. So think about that for a minute. In aggregate, the CCAs are beyond their compliance requirements. Well, there's a cost to that, right? Why are we doing it? Because we don't think the projects are going to be on time. They're not going to make it August 1st of 2024. So we have to go out and we have to procure more. Well, there's a cost to that, and that cost flows through to the customer. So again, we're in that vicious cycle that I talked about at the beginning. There are other things that we talked about on lobby day that the CCAs are doing. And a lot of this has to do with the fact there are local governments. We are tax exempt. So the first is on bill savings. And we were able to go back in and we used the CPUC rate comparison website to look at CCAs versus their counterparts. And we took the Energy Commission power source disclosure data, and we were able to calculate that CCAs collectively are saving their customers about $760 million per year compared to their non-CCA counterparts. So that's a real stat. The other thing is the leveraging of the power of green bonds. So again, as local governments, we have a sister organization that was formed about 3 or 4 years ago called the California Community Financing Authority. And there are 5 CCAs that are part of that. They have now issued nearly $10 billion in prepayment bonds. They prepay the power purchase agreements for the life of the purchase agreement. And they have a savings per year of $60 million now. So again, another really interesting tool in the toolbox. And then lastly, I think what's really interesting about CCAs is, well, I don't know about you, but I know I get a climate credit, but I have auto payments. So I have no idea. I couldn't tell you what month I get the climate credit. So sometimes an on-bill, a savings like that, I don't see. Whereas what I'm more interested in is a long-term solution. So CCAs are developing programs like around energy efficiency, right? Which you can target at low income. Well, I know MCE did low income and middle income folks, and they've got some really good stats because they started in 2019. And they have stats around how much they invested per home for energy efficiency and for electrification efforts, and the difference that they made, and the difference in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So anyways, my message is we've got a problem, and we're all hands on deck trying to solve it because it's going to take everyone. And back to where I started before is we can do things in the generation space, but what we're starting to do, and with the board approval, we're getting involved in the distribution side of it, because if we can't connect, if we can't think of solutions there, the estimated cost of cleaning up the entire distribution system is astronomical. And we need to think more inventively about how we can use distributed energy resources to do that. So I'm going to end on a high note. We have a conference coming up in April. The theme is energizing innovation, but we are going to, look more deeply into all of these topics. We have one on financing tools. We have others on affordability, so we can go in a lot deeper. So a little bit of an advertisement for you. And then, of course, as always, we have our website and our newsletters and those sorts of things, tons of information that's available. And basically, we are here to help. So thank you for putting up with me and sharing my anxiety over these issues that we face. They're important, but they're solvable. Thank you.
Really appreciate it, Beth. Excellent job in framing some of the issues. Are there questions for Beth or comments? Go ahead, Christy.
Thank you so much for coming all the way down here. It's nice to see you. It's always anxiety prone for me
I'm
being
sorry.
in this area. I was part of the Solana Energy Alliance, and it seems like every single year it's all like, oh, shoot, we didn't, it's more. So I just want to ask you, so I guess we just need to look ahead to say, we're doing the right thing. We're cleaning up our environment. It's what we need to do. If we didn't do this, we would be back with just, the dirty energy. But can we say, like, in 5 years, we're going to be pretty much on the right track? Or,
That's the estimate, and that's sort of the length of the temporary waivers that folks are requesting, right? Let's take kind of a release valve there,
pause, yeah.
right? Take a pause on that. Why penalize people and make that an additional cost to customers when it's not necessary? So we're hoping we get traction on that. But that's what the numbers tend to show. I think one of the questions is, how do you sequence all of this, right? And I really do believe one of the big problems and issues is wildfires, right? Well, for us up north, I know you folks had it earlier, and SDG&E actually did a lot of hardening, right? A lot more preparation here. But in Pacific Gas and Electric's territory, where I am, they're woefully behind And beginning in 2017, right, it was every single year it was a catastrophe. So that's why their rates are higher than anyone else's, is they've had to divert funds that would have gone to other activities. So in terms of prioritization, how do you tell them wildfire mitigation isn't, top priority?
Right. Yeah, I know. I did see that they did a lot in San Diego, but we also paid for that. So it's just so crazy. We pay for everything. And, to read in the paper yesterday that SDG&E's profits were 900 million is just that there's just no wrapping your head around that for the average person. It's so distressing.
So I'm glad that you raised that. So another thing that we're doing, I didn't mention there, is really putting pressure on the Public Utilities Commission around affordability. They came up with a set of affordability metrics that they don't use as far as we can tell. And a metric should also have a benchmark, which doesn't have, so it's more like an indicator, right? And so we're really pushing on having more transparency around the numbers at the IOUs and looking at, if you're going to create these metrics, then let's figure out how to use them. And there are some interesting examples. Last week when we were up there, Barbara Hale, who heads Clean Power SF, is also the assistant manager of San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, and they created an affordability metric for water. And so we were looking to see, could we apply something like that to energy as well? So great point you make.
I'm so glad you have all these smart people working on it. Thank you so much.
Katie.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. I think it's good to be made aware of some of your concerns. What is being done and what can we do? What can be done to address some of the delays of these clean energy projects that you're describing?
Well, I think the message got through last year that it wasn't going to be tolerated, I mean, in Sacramento and to the governor's office. And so there were a number of things in Assembly Bill 1373 that was passed in August, particularly around inefficiencies, I would call them, where there's so many different agencies. One agency would look at an evaluation that had been done, and then when it moves off to the next agency, it would start all over again, especially around permitting. So there's been some fast tracking in that arena. There were a couple of bills around distribution that were not passed. And honestly, some of us thought they were going to be packaged into an infrastructure package, and the governor would announce this as one of his trailer bills, right? But with the deficit, I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. But definitely it's a very live issue in Sacramento.
Christian, go ahead.
All right, well, thank you so much. I know it was mentioned earlier. Well, thank you for the information. I know it's a lot and it's not all great news. What was mentioned earlier is that there's the AB 1999, which is to repeal parts of AB 205. What is the position of the CCA and what are we looking to do to prevent that? Because that's just going to increase energy usage. And I don't know how this is beyond most people, where there's no incentive to conserve energy. So I just want to know what the position is and what can we do here in order to.
It's a really great question. So the income graduated fixed charge and Jackie Irwin and co-authors bill is what you're referring to. And I'll just throw out, there's several more bills directed at some want to repeal that section in AB 205. Others have other ideas. Hers, I believe, introduces the fixed charge is capped at $10. So I don't know if you noticed with my slides, but I have an amazing data analytics team. And it's something that we spend a lot of time thinking about. But I'll have to say Ava Energy, which was the new name of East Bay Community Energy, they took the lead in this. And Ava, which is interesting because it's Alameda County to Stockton, right? So think about those communities are very different. The energy needs are very different, which I think is really important. And they have this methodology that's now been shared with Energy Division and with public advocates and actually with folks in Sacramento as well, where they they looked at all the different proposals and what that would actually mean to their communities. What would happen to their care fare folks, right? Does it actually achieve its objectives, which is to provide a discount to the people who really need it, or were they left out? And what we learned from that experiment, let me start with one point though, is that the pie never shrinks, right? This is just about rate design. So that's number one, is that's not about reducing costs, right? It's about how do you allocate a pie. So that's a problem. And then if you're just looking at how the pie is split up, what has been found in the different scenarios is exactly to your point, right? The winners and losers. And Ava has shared that methodology modeling with the other CCAs. So it's something that I know Greg in his spare time could work on for Clean Energy Alliance. So you could have a look, and I think he even created like a heat map when you look at your communities. So I think that there's going to, what I'll say is that it's in the public utilities proceeding. So while there are bills, and there's a really fascinating conversation going on in Sacramento, what we've heard is they're close to having a proposed decision out at the Public Utilities Commission. But I think, the governor's office is taking very close note of this. There may be ways, I guess what I want to say is what I'm hearing are some different ideas about how to refine it, that the objective's not wrong. It's how it has been designed. And in the most extreme is the IOU's proposal, right? That is the most extreme. You can see the tails on it. That's where you have the highest fixed price, and there's absolute winners and losers.
Yeah, I disagree. I think the objective is wrong, but that goes beyond. I guess my point, what I'm asking though is in order to, because this is going to increase energy use. So I guess that's my question is, what are we doing in order to, how are we going to prevent the energy use that's going to be increased through AB 205? And AB 1999, I believe, is going to be vetoed by the governor. Is there a backup? Is there something that we can do collectively in order to?
Well, I think people should be
circumvent this?
looking at the proposals between the book ends. So the IOU one is too extreme, and there's others that don't incent any behavior change, right? And what you have to do is look at what is the methodology that's actually going to achieve the objective. And right now, there's about 5 solid proposals, 5 or 6 out there that are being considered. And knowing the Public Utilities Commission, they'll split the baby. Yeah.
Appreciate you asking that. If you hadn't asked it, I was going to ask about the income graduated, because that was, Greg and I were up in Sacramento last week, and it was obviously one of the issues that we were chatting about. Beth, I really appreciate you coming down again. Excellent presentation. Look forward to working with CalCCA. I understand a couple board members have already signed up for the conference. Last year, I would say that conference was incredible, at least for me, because I'd never seen and been involved in this. So any board member that is interested in learning more about clean energy and how we're going to get there, this conference is it.
Good. We will.
So
Great.
great. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your time.
Next, we have the consent calendar. We have 2 items on the consent calendar. Kaylin, will you read those items?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Item 1, Clean Energy Alliance Treasurer's Report for December 2023. Item 2, receive Clean Energy Alliance Chief Executive Officer Operational Report.
Okay. Are there any items that anybody would like to add to the consent calendar? Are there any items that anybody would like to remove from the consent calendar? I'm going to remove the Chief Executive Report. Very interesting stuff that we need to talk about. So any other items? Okay, with that, you have a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report.
Move to approve.
A second.
Okay, very good. Kaylin, will you please call the roll? And we have a new.
Yes, we will note that alternate board member Joyce arrived at 2:40 p.m. And for taking roll on approving item 1 of the consent calendar, Board Member Garcia,
Yes.
Board Member Becker.
Yes.
Board Member Musgrove,
Aye.
Board Member Joyce,
Aye.
Board Member Bat Patel,
Aye.
Vice Chair Melendez,
Aye.
Chair Druger.
Yes. Very good. So now Greg, you're up.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. It's good to be here. Before I get started on the CEO report, I just wanted to again thank Barb Boswell for her assistance in getting me acclimated to this role. And I also wanted to thank our consultants, Tim Lindell, who's about to provide his update to you on regulatory affairs, as well as all the consultants we work with. And I also wanted to tell you that we have a very dedicated and hardworking staff. It's a lean staff, but they've all jumped right in and are doing really good work so far. So I'm excited about that. So what I'm going to do is give you an overview right now about a couple of things that are front and center for us, and that is primarily the launching of the cities of Vista and Oceanside and the enrollment of those customers. This report will focus on that, primarily the outreach efforts, which include the mailed notices, presentations to various groups, meetings with key stakeholders, our social media outreach, and community events. And give you a very brief update on our Solar Plus program, which is ready to be onboarded, and I'll discuss a little bit about how we plan to approach that. So our required notices have gone out. Our first 60-day notices have gone out to customers of both the cities of Vista and Oceanside. Those are known as the pre-enrollment postcards. You may have, I'm sure you have. We have coordinated with your various staffs, and we know that questions are coming in, and we're handling those. In March, our second 30-day notice, pre-enrollment notice will go out. And then in May, we'll have a welcome letter. That's another opportunity for customers to become aware of this launch and also to opt down, up, or out of this CEA. And then in June is our post-enrollment postcard that goes out. Those are the 4 required notices that will be have already started going out and will go out. Our staff has been hard at work engaging with various members of the community, stakeholder meetings. I won't go over all of these, but this is just an overview of some of the things that our staff, including when I got on board, participated in. We're meeting with a variety of groups, our chambers of commerce for the cities of Vista and Oceanside. We've had meetings at Clean Tech San Diego, various boards and committees. And again, our staff is really engaged with the staffs of both cities of Vista and Oceanside in this enrollment process and this launching process. And it's been quite a bit of work to engage and work with these folks. So again, I won't go through all of these, but that's just a list of some of them. Our social media campaign, we've been active with our partner, Trepepi Smith, in getting the word out as well. You see some of the media and communications right there, the Coast News, both the Inland Edition as well as Coast News, Vista Press, North County Daily Star, and in Vista and Oceanside, Vista Magazine, Oceanside Magazine, and then of course our social media accounts. We've been announcing this impending launch of both the cities. Another key element in the city of Vista is the Moonlight Amphitheater sponsorship. We've got logo recognition on the Moonlight website. We've got the name and logo in the 70,000 summer show programs, quarter-page advertisement, a banner at the amphitheater north and south entrances, and a full-page digital ad on the amphitheater billboard during all of those productions and events. It's a little bit difficult to read, but these are the upcoming community events. This is a time in which I think quite all of you are familiar with. We get out into the community. We're going to be at the Vice Chair Melendez and I are actually participating in a podcast that's coming Monday to help get the word out. So we're looking forward to that. Again, I won't go through all of these, but our first farmers market will be at the Oceanside Sunset Market on March 7th. We have another one on the 28th. The Vista Business Breakfast, we also will be participating in the Vista Farmers Market. And then you can see there also Earth Day, Alta Vista Botanical Gardens, the Sony Electronics Earth Day Fair, and going into page two, just a whole list of other events that we plan to participate in. And this is currently expanding. So this is not going to be an exclusive list. We're looking at other outreach efforts, and our staff is actively engaged in expanding this list. I just wanted to see if I'm just thinking if there was anything else to report on that. Again, we are actively engaging the community. And again, I want to thank our staff for working on those efforts. As I mentioned, the Solar Plus, the battery plus storage program is ready to go. This is a program which will help folks get solar panels and battery installed on their homes. There's no upfront costs. It's an equitable program, meaning that there's no requirement for credit application. There's a cost savings, energy cost savings involved. And as was mentioned in previous comments by the Vice Chair, GHG reductions, an increase in renewable energy for CCA, and further increasing our energy reliability for our customers. The manner in which we are planning to roll this out is we want to make sure we can test this. We've got some applicants that are waiting in the wings that staff will actively engage with to get onboarded through the website that we will be using. Our plan is to walk them through this process with a select few of them so that we can work out any glitches that might arise with the website, as well as just questions that come up to make this as user-friendly and customer-friendly a process and program as we can. So that's our plan, after this test run, we will then go out and market the program to get customers enrolled at a wider level throughout our service territory. That really concludes this presentation. I do want to also highlight, as Chair Drucker mentioned, Chair Drucker and I went to the lobby day in Sacramento a week ago, and wanted to again thank Beth Vaughn for being here and also spearheading that effort. It was a very engaged opportunity to not only meet with other CCA officials and board members, but to get out in front of our legislators and put forward some of these really important issues. We had an opportunity not only to meet with staff of the governor's office, we met with a member of the Energy Commission and other individuals, but Chair Drucker and I were also able to get time in front of our local elected officials, Senator Blakespear, Assemblymember Borner, and Assemblymember Ward, to again voice our concerns and seek support, all of whom are very supportive of what we are doing. So it was a very valuable trip. And again, I wanted to thank Cal CCA and Beth Vaughn for putting that together and allowing us to be a part of it. So I'm available for any questions if you have any. And that concludes that report.
Questions for Greg? Go ahead, Priya.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for the presentation. I noticed that on the list of stakeholders that you had Oceanside Unified School District. And I know that Carlsbad Unified has definitely had questions around how things are going, how it's rolling out, how they can be involved in understanding some of the process. And so I was just curious how the outreach to other school districts is going as well.
Yeah, so I appreciate that question. We are actually scheduled a meeting to meet with our school subcommittee of our Citizen Advisory Committee. My calendar has been so full of meetings, I can't tell you exactly when that is, but we have engaged with them and we are actively pursuing those questions and concerns and hopeful that we can broaden, while we are working on a local solar or community solar program, broaden our Solar Plus to include non-residential customers. And so we're looking at those meetings as an opportunity to be innovative about how we approach microgrid and distributed energy with not only our schools, but commercial and industrial property owners and customers.
Great, thank you. And we do have a city schools committee, which has 4 different districts that are represented on there in the city of Carlsbad. So that might be a great opportunity to share with all 4 of them at the same time, just throwing it out there as an option. So
Great, thanks.
thanks.
Sorry. Want to make one further comment about our legislative. You have, I will get back to you, okay? We were able to specifically meet with Catherine Blakespears, energy analyst. And unfortunately, he didn't know anything about CCAs. So we spent about a half hour with him telling him about CCAs and how important it was. So this was not part of the schedule, but we just knocked on the door and did that. All these meetings were extremely interesting with all of the various members of the legislators, legislative staff, the governor's staff, et cetera. I would say one thing that, again, was learned about the graduated income distribution fee is the governor is very supportive of this. He sees this as an important part of his legislative agenda. So we'll be working on that with, I guess, our assembly members and state senators. So with that, Christian, did you have a question or comment? Are there any members of the public that wanted to speak to this item, Kaylin?
We do not have any speakers.
Okay, so next we go on to new business. We're going to have a regulatory update from Keys and Fox. Tim, you're up.
Excuse me, Chair. We'll need to vote on item 2 to receive the report.
It was removed from the consent.
Okay. Do I have a motion to receive the report?
No, move to receive the report.
Second that.
Okay. Please call the roll, Galen.
Board Member Garcia. Board Member Becker.
Yes.
Board Member Musgrove. Board Member Joyce.
Aye.
Board Member Bot Patel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Melendez.
Aye.
Chair Druker.
Yes. Okay, sorry about that, Tim. Now you're up.
Thank you. My slides come up. Chair Druker, Vice Chair Melendez, members, thank you for having me yet again. My name is Tim Lindell, partner at the law firm Keys and Fox. It's been kind of a slow regulatory 4.5 weeks, 3.5 weeks. So the team at Clean Energy Alliance asked me to maybe give you a little bit of a primer, a 101, if you will, on integrated resource planning. What the IRP, just to use yet another acronym for you all, Integrated Resource Plan does. Beth did a great job of laying out the really aggressive greenhouse gas goals that the state of California has. What the IRP does is it says, okay, in terms of the energy that we are procuring, how are we going to achieve those goals? What is the resource mix? What do load serving entities like Clean Energy Alliance need to procure in order to get there? Part of what that docket does is it puts together a preferred system portfolio being a mix of different resources. If you recall Beth's resource stack that she had up there. That resource stack is built based on the plans that each individual load serving entity prepares. And then the commission identifies if there's any gaps or any needs within those resource plans. And then if there are gaps, it might order certain procurements. So again, Beth was talking about midterm reliability or MTR procurements, and she said that the CCAs were actually over procured on all those. Those MTRs were needs that the commission discovered were necessary for reliability over the past 2 or 3 years, and so they ordered further procurement. All of this comes from SB 350, and I'm not going to read to you statutes because that would put everybody to sleep. But there's really 3 components from SB 350. One is meet those clean energy goals. 2 is keep rates low, minimize costs. And 3 is maintain reliability. And ironically, it's very similar to what Beth had up there when she was talking about the clean energy transition dilemma. Those are the three things we're all trying to make happen at the same time. And the IRP is where the commission is considering what's the best way for us to get there, looking about 10 years into the future. So every 2 years, Clean Energy Alliance is required to submit an IRP plan. The most recent IRP plans that were submitted were called the 2022 plans. What those do is they show how the resources CEA has procured will meet the emission limits that are required by the commission, supported by state law, and also how you're going to maintain reliability. So if your IRP said all we've got is solar, that's not going to cut it on reliability, because when the sun isn't shining, you wouldn't be able to serve your customers. So it balances both your goals, the state's goals, but also reliability. Interestingly enough, the resource mix that the PUC targets can create certain winners and losers in terms of resources that are procured. So in these proceedings, there are a lot of developers that come in and say, you need offshore wind. That's the best way to get there. Energy storage people say, no, batteries. That's the best way to get there. The commission sifts through all that and comes up with a preferred system. The most recent iteration of this, like I said, came out with a proposed decision last January. Briefly updated you on that last month. It had some inconsistency in how it addressed Clean Energy Alliance's IRP. It initially said that CEA had provided all the required information, and then elsewhere in the proposed decision, it said CEA's individual submissions were not yet approved or certified. So thankfully, we have Beth and her staff and the California Community Choice Association submitted comments on CEA's behalf that said, no, we're certified. We should be approved. And in the final decision that came out, 240247 up there, the commission corrected the discrepancy. So CEA's integrated resource plan is certified, and you are well on your way for your procurement to meet the state's requirements. In addition, that preferred system portfolio sets a 25 million metric ton GHG goal for the state of California. So that means by 2035, all electricity generation in the state should only be creating 25 million metric tons of GHGs each year. To benchmark that for you, it's 38 million metric tons for the year 2030. So you can start to see the GHG requirements start to come down. In addition, that decision did pick some winners and losers. Out-of-state wind, for example, the commission said discourage the procurement of out-of-state wind because it's transmission restricted. It's hard to get wind from Wyoming, for example, to be delivered in-state to California. And so they significantly reduced the amount of out-of-state wind that would be a part of that preferred system portfolio. Interestingly enough, offshore wind in the central part of the state of California actually got an increase. And that's because Diablo Canyon is going to come offline in the San Luis Obispo area in the middle around 2030 at this point. So that actually frees up a lot of transmission capacity in that area. So the commission said, well, this is a great place for us to build some offshore. The next IRP for us will be due sometime after November 2024. The decision left it a little vague. But we will get a scoping ruling in this case in the middle of this year that gives us a deadline for when the next IRP will be. So that's when we'll be revisiting, okay, what do we need to do? Or we'll be putting back together another plan on how we're going to get there. That's it for me. I'm happy to stay for questions, but I did want to plug the CalCCA conference one more time because I found out today from Beth that they're planning an IRP game. So you could actually go to a workshop and do your own integrated resource planning and figure out how the different resource mixes fit, how the costs turn out. And for a nerd like me, that's really exciting and would be a great time. Maybe not for all of you. All right, that's my regulatory report. Happy to answer any.
Thank you, Tim. Are there questions for Tim? Go ahead.
Interesting about the Wyoming predicament. Is it the capacity to carry? So that's it. So there's a level of consistency they're looking at where they can fairly estimate what will come out of the Central Valley as opposed to out of state and circuitous route, not to be punny, that it takes to get here.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not only capacity to carry, but it's also other states are increasing their interest in renewables. And so they're building things, and that is crowding out the ability to deliver things like wind all the way from faraway states into the state.
So is there a concern that maybe we need to increase our grid capacity, or is that not factoring into these decisions?
Those out of state, sorry to interrupt you, those
No.
out of state resources, that doesn't really factor into it, but yes, definitely, we need to build our in-state transmission capacity, certainly. And you saw in one of Beth's slides, she had that steep black line. That's the transmission build out we need to have happening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I know you're trying to well, thank you first off for the presentation. I appreciate it. I know you're trying to condense it, but can you expand on like which, if you go back to the slide where it talks about winners and losers, or yeah. There you go. What were the criteria in order to pick winners, losers? I know it's not just what's best. Can you just, expand on that just a little bit, please?
I can, it gets very technical. So it's a lot of modeling with anticipated costs. Under what scenarios will different resources be dispatched? What are the anticipated costs that we would expect those resources to be earning? And then also the cost of those resources at the same time. And so there's these very complex models, and the commission runs the different scenarios through these models and comes up with the answers on the backside. Lots of parties are analyzing those models, saying, well, we don't think that model does a good job of representing actual GHG emissions or things like that. And then the commission takes those comments into consideration, sometimes tweaks things, sometimes says, no, we think we have it right. And then they come back out with, we think this is the right approach. That's one, is the model. And then two, it's just good feedback. So a lot of people are a lot of load serving entities, for example, are planning to develop wind off of Humboldt in the very northern part of the state. And the problem right now in Humboldt is just not enough transmission capacity there. And so there was feedback from parties where the commission was planning on X number of megawatts coming from that area, but parties were like, look, there isn't enough transmission that's going to be available there. What the commission did in that case was actually said, we're going to leave the number where it is, but we're going to really encourage transmission build outs to happen in that area.
For the commission, are there any like stakeholder, is it all third party, or is there any like stakeholders that are providing energy or anything, or is it totally independent away from anybody who might be an invested party in it?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have both the people that are developing these projects submitting comments, then you have the people like LCCA and us that are trying to buy those. And so there is we can definitely do this. And then there's a, no, we can't, happening at the same time. The CAISO is a party to those proceedings as well, the California Independent System Operator, a pretty trusted voice in terms of what is and is not feasible. And then you have ratepayer advocates are also participating. You have environmental organizations, you have environmental justice organizations, lots of different voices with the proceeding.
Other questions? Tim, really appreciate the report today and look forward to next month.
Thanks.
Thank you. So next we go on to amend the JP Morgan line of credit. Greg, I assume you're up on this, at least to introduce it.
Thank you, Chair Drucker and members of the board. This item involves a recommendation to increase the line of credit with JP Morgan. Going to give you a little bit of background on that and get into the specifics of this amendment to our line of credit with JP Morgan. So there you have the recommendation. We're looking for adoption of Resolution 2024-001 that would increase the line of credit from 25 million currently to up to $40 million with an additional $10 million accordion, as they refer to it, that would not be paid. There would be no fees on that 10 million. It would just be there if needed. And then to authorize the CEO to execute the documents that would effectuate this amendment. So again, I mentioned the background. Just preface this slide by saying that since launch in 2021, we've been in a state of expansion and growth from the launch in the first 2 years when we sought a line of credit of $6 million in January of 2021. That increased to $15 million in January of 2022. And then with the expansions into San Marcos and Escondido in 2022, and now with the proposed expansion into Vista and Oceanside in 2024, we had increased it again to 25 million, and now we're recommending it go to 40 million. The reason being is that, as we've tried to make clear during briefings and other meetings, we're required to start procuring in January. We're required to procure not only for our existing customers, but also for customers that are coming online without the benefit of receiving ratepayer funds or revenue from those ratepayers. Given that we're increasing our load, our customer base rather, by 2/3 with this expansion, that's a lot of procurement that has to take place without the benefit of revenue. And so this line of credit will provide us that ability. We do not expect to draw down the entire 40 million. And we do expect to be able to pay back that line of credit by October of 2025. This shows the credit terms are unchanged. There are basic credit terms, including fees and benchmarks for days of cash on hand, as well as debt service coverage. Those will remain the same. And as I mentioned, we expect that whatever amounts are drawn down for procurement will be repaid by October of 2025. And this existing line of credit would expire at the end of February in 2026. Sorry, the end of January 2026. This shows the estimated costs for the line of credit through its term. You can see there in the table that I believe, and if somebody can correct me, or just if the question comes up, we're about $3 million into our current line of credit is what we've drawn down, 3 or 4 million. These shows the interest costs escalating to 6.9 million and total costs of 6.9 million if that entire 40 million were to be drawn down and used. As I mentioned, the fees stay the same. It's 1.25% on the amount available, except for that 10 million, as I mentioned. And the interest costs are within the pro forma limits we've established and within the proposed 24-25 budget. That concludes this report. It's brief, but it is an important part of our operations, and I'm available to answer any questions. I believe Andy Stern, our CFO, is also online and available to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Greg?
One quick question. So even if we don't, you were saying we don't anticipate using the whole 40 million. Even if we don't use the 40 million, we will pay interest on the entire amount. Is that?
There's a fee amount, the 1.25%,
Got
correct?
it. Yeah, thank you.
That fee amount is based upon, though, the amount of credit we use.
That's correct. Sorry, if there's a fee amount and then there's an interest rate, the fee amount, I believe, is applicable to the balance, and I'll defer to Andy Stern on this one if he's available.
Hi, hello, board. Let me turn on my camera too, in case you. Oh, I can't turn on my camera, so you don't need to see me. The 1.25% per year is a commitment fee. So that amount applies to the amounts that are unused under the credit line. So just an example, if we have a $40 million line and we've drawn down $10 million of it, we would pay the full interest rate, which is a floating interest rate, on the $10 million on a monthly basis. So it's whatever that amount is, 7 or 8% divided by 12 would be a monthly amount on the 10 million. And then we would pay 1.25% on the remaining 30 million that's available to us, but not being used.
Answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? Can you go back to the slide before? Actually, the question is, how much have we drawn down so far?
Greg, can I jump in, Greg?
Go ahead, yes.
At the moment, and I'm looking at my screen while I'm talking to you, we have, of the $25 million that's currently available to us, we have an outstanding balance of 4.95 million. So just short of 5 million. That amount, we've drawn down more than that, closer to the 25 million sometime last year. But right now we're at 4.95 million because we paid down a good deal of it. As you may remember, our finances are very seasonal. So we generate a lot of income and cash in the July, August, September, October timeframe. And we typically use a lot of the cash or have a big need for cash in the December, usually November, December, January, February timeframe, when our rates are lower and the usage is lower. Our current projection is that we will need to draw down about a total of 27 million would be the high point before the end of June. June is usually our lowest month of the year. That amount fluctuates. We thought it was a little bit higher, likely to be a little higher than that a few weeks ago. And I won't, which is the reason that Greg mentioned, or we're here to talk about expanding the line. But at the same time, we don't expect to draw down the whole 40 million. That number fluctuates based upon the results and the cost of energy and how much revenue it generates, but we track it as close to daily as we can. And if that projection is right, that we expect to draw down a maximum of about 27 million by June, we expect to pay that back by September. Because as I mentioned, our finances and our financial performance in the July, August, and September timeframe is usually quite positive. And then we don't expect to need to draw down, or at least our projections are that we don't need to draw down again until the spring of next year, although not to the same level. And then we expect to pay that back a few months after that too.
Greg or Andy, could you comment on the terms and conditions? What do we need to meet so that we don't have to pay this back as a penalty or something like that?
Sure. There are two main covenants. Well, three main covenants. There's lots of terms and lots of contracts and lawyers involved in writing those contracts, but three main ones to talk about. The first is that we have an obligation as a board, or you have an obligation as a board to ensure that rates are sufficient to cover our costs. And we will let you know when that is an issue that we would need to address. But there's two primary covenants. We need to maintain what's known as the debt service coverage ratio at 1.4. It's a or higher. It is a backwards looking 1 year backwards looking measure of our financial performance as a ratio of our debt interest costs. Our projections are that we'll be above that level for the foreseeable future, although it is we make projections, we monitor projections on a regular basis, and we expect to be very close to that at the end of June at this point. If you recall, we did not meet that covenant at the end of June last year, and we received a waiver from the bank for the covenant. They understand that we're expanding, and our expansions are right in the time frame when our cash is typically lowest, right around the April, May, June timeframe. So that's kind of our tough point, and we were able to show them that our projections were highly positive, and so they agreed to that waiver. And the second one is that if we don't meet that, then we have a second fallback covenant that we have to maintain 50 days of cash on hand. I can walk you through the calculation of that, but that number actually we are less because we don't have a lot of cash. That number sometimes drops below the minimum of 50 days and is expected to be below the 50-day threshold at the end of June, and then increasing back above it later in the next few months after that. However, that's only a fallback if we don't make the 1.4 debt service coverage ratio. Sorry for all the details. There's lots of information and lots of things we track at great detail.
Thank you very much, Andy.
Sure.
Ed, you have a question?
Yes, real quickly. So we need to secure the line of credit to procure the contracts in anticipation of Vista and Oceanside. We'll not receive revenues from Vista and Oceanside until April of 2025. Is that correct?
No, that's not true. Well, at least if I understood what you said. Well, at least in Oceanside, we, whoever signs up in Vista and Oceanside will sign up effective April 2024. And we start receiving the cash or payments from their incurred expenses and incurred electricity use, you know, whenever their bills are generated. But sometime that, you know, if you think about somebody who their bill is transferred to CEA on April 1st, or as effective April 1st, but their billing doesn't happen until, let's say, April 28th is their typical monthly billing date. We wouldn't get payment until sometime between or closer to May 28th. So it could be as long as 60 days for some people. Most bills are sent on a spread basis throughout the month. So they you know, everyone gets bills on different days depending on when they signed up and when they initially had service. So we'll start receiving cash from that usage in the May-June timeframe. However, those payments are lower than they will be in the summer because summer rates don't kick in until the May timeframe. So they would be based upon very low rates and delayed payments at the same time that we're incurring costs in advance of their usage.
So when would you anticipate letting these contracts? And then this sounds like we're just trying to bridge the gap between the use and the means to provide the power. So when
Yeah,
would
I'm
you
not
anticipate the
sure
contracts?
exactly what you mean by the question about contracts, but a credit line is just that. It is just bridging the gap between the timing of when we incur expenses and when we collect the cash. That is exactly what it's for, because as I mentioned, we expect to be rise from the 5 million that's currently outstanding to about 27 million by the end of June, and then pay that back in the July, August, and September timeframe. So we'll be back to a zero balance with my projection in the by the end of September. The same as what happened last year, by the way.
And Board Member Musgrove, so we're actively in the market right now, procuring energy for all our customers, including the expanded territory. So we're doing that right now. We just had a solicitation. We had really good response. We partnered with Cal Choice CCA, and that's for quite a bit of the load that we anticipate. And we had, like I said, quite a good, robust response, and we're evaluating those contracts and expect to have a PPA for that solicitation coming forward fairly soon. But we're actively in the market now, so we're getting ready to spend money for that energy, and
We need the money to spend.
yes, and that's what this is all about. Exactly.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Other questions? Okay. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this?
We do not have any speakers.
Okay. Are there any comments on this at this point? Okay, so do I have a motion to amend or approve or amend our JP Morgan line of credit?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Okay, very good. Kaylin, will you please call the roll?
Board Member Garcia,
Yes. Yes.
Board Member Becker, Board Member Musgrove,
Aye.
Board Member Joyce,
Aye.
Board Member Bot Patel,
Aye.
Vice Chair Melendez,
Aye.
Chair Druker.
Yes. Thank you very much. Next, we go on to amend the Community Advisory Committee 2024 meeting schedule. Greg, I assume you're up on this?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair, members of the board. This is a request to change the Citizen Advisory Committee, Community Advisory Committee, my apologies. From the date that was initially anticipated, we had received feedback, and I believe this board was made aware of this, that they had hoped to move the meeting earlier in the day to 1 p.m. and they were looking at a request for the first Thursday of the month. That did not align with the chair of that committee, the busy schedule. And so we polled the members of the committee, and the second Thursday at 1 p.m. works for everybody. So our recommendation is to have the board approve this revised schedule to allow the CAC to meet on the second Thursday of even numbered months at 1 p.m., with the exception being that next month, March, an odd number, we will be meeting on that second Thursday at 1 p.m. And again, available for any questions, and that's concludes that report.
Any questions? Any members of the public that want to speak to this? Oh,
Oh,
did you have, I'm
I
sorry.
was just going to move for us to approve,
I know.
and thank you for coordinating all of that.
Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this?
We do not have any members of the public wishing to speak.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. Will you call the roll, Kalen?
Board Member Garcia.
Aye.
Member Becker.
Yes.
Board Member Musgrove.
Aye.
Board Member Joyce.
Aye.
Board Member Bot Patel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Melendez.
Aye.
Chair Druker.
Yes. Very good. Next, do we have any board member requests for future agenda items? Looks like you have one, Christian.
Well, it's not for a future, but can we get the report that was presented earlier from the Cal CCA? That's the only thing. Thank you.
Yes, we can.
Very good.
And well, thank you.
Any other? Okay, so with that, our next meeting is going to be March 28th, 2024 here, and will be at 2 p.m. Thank you very much. Good to see you. Oh, yeah, wonderful.